They said you were the best in the parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast covering Star Wars TV shows on Disney+. Today we're covering Ahsoka, Part 1, Master and Apprentice, as well as Part 2, Toil and Trouble. My name's Bubba, and with me in this special series of Ahsoka is not Catfish. It's the musical expert. It's the man with he'll describe it himself, on his head. It's Double M, Matt Murdock. He keeps Kevin Kiner up at night. Matt, how you doing?
I am great, Bubba. It is so nice to be on this podcast. I wish that I was Catfish. I am not. I know that you fans are disappointed, but thanks for having me. If you want to, I guess call me Walleye, but I just prefer Double M. That's great. I am so excited about this show that I brought my Togruta headpiece. I look just like Ahsoka with the Togruta lobes and everything else. Love it, love it, love it. I can't wait to talk about these 2 episodes.
Guys, we are going to be talking about these first 2 episodes of the first season of Ahsoka. If you haven't seen those, come back after you've watched them. Matt, let's not waste any time. What is your rating out of 10 for these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka?
All right. Well, combining them together, I came up with a rating of 9 out of 10, what I like to call double U's.
Wait, double U's?
Yeah, that stands for ugly uniforms. There's no reason why anybody should be loyal to the New Republic. Those uniforms are god-awful. I think they're the ugliest uniforms I have ever seen. I understand why people on Corellia just want to make money for themselves. At least they don't have to wear that stupid poop khaki and that stupid putrid blue. That was awful. Those uniforms are awful. Seriously, though, the show was so wonderful. I think that if you are a fan of the animated series Rebels, especially, you really dug these episodes. This episode, both of them were just about family and about both the beautiful side and the ugly side of them. I think that it was probably done that way on purpose, partially to catch non-viewers or people who hadn't watched the animation series up with kind of what the status of these relationships are. And that was the one thing that took a point away for me, was simply for the fact that Filoni did have to take some extra time to set some of that stuff up, which did slow the story down just a little bit. Not enough to really make me upset. I mean, I can't give anything lower than a 7 anyway. But I would have given Baylan and Shin's stuff, the new stuff, a 10. I would have given all of this stuff just a fantastic rating if it hadn't been for the fact that there were people like you, Bubba, who haven't seen the animated series, who have to be told what the relationship of these people are, and have it spelled out for you so clearly that you can say, okay, we're ready to move on to actual storyline now.
Man, I feel like I got a lightsaber right through the gut, and find out on the next podcast if I survived. Wow, 9 out of 10. I'm so glad you're hyped, Matt. I'm so glad you know what you're talking about. Did you say this thing on your head is the Togruta? For everybody on the audio podcast, he's wearing the kind of head
Ahsoka.
Tails. Yeah, the Ahsoka head.
They're the lobes that are on a Togruta species. And that's or bless you, whichever way you want to say, because it does sound kind of like a sneeze. No, it's the Ahsoka headpiece. And you've worn them on Halloween. I'm sure you have, Bubba. I know you have.
Well, here, let's get to my rating, and you called me out on it ahead of time. This is going to be, hopefully, listeners, I hope you find this fascinating, my review and thoughts on this show, because when this show is over, my thought was, you know what? This show is good. I know it's good, but I'm also kind of confused about if it's really good. So it's this weird thing. I decided to give it 7 double L's out of 10.
Only 7? Wait a minute. Double L's?
Lightsaber and ladies. We've got a lot of ladies with lightsabers. I love it. I think they're kicking butt. Now, I did think with the end of episode 1 into episode 2, where Sabine gets one right through the gut, a lightsaber through the gut, and in the next episode, she's kind of fine. I thought to myself, Qui-Gon Jinn's ghost must be thinking, did Naboo not have any hospitals? How come I'm dead? What's going on here? Now, of course, George Lucas did that. He chopped Darth Maul in half, and somehow Darth Maul lived, even though one through the belly, got all Qui-Gon again. So I didn't like that Sabine kind of recovered so quickly. I don't mind somebody surviving a lightsaber stabbing, but Sabine seemed like she was ready to get out of bed, without any pain, and like, here, let's go. Second thing that kind of caused me to go all the way down to 7. Hopefully, guys, you understand that. I do realize it's good. The second reason why I went down to 7 is I feel like some of the dialogue on this show is just generic Star Wars. Sometimes even just generic, hey, we're going to put together a team and go fight something. Like I copied a couple of lines from the episodes where somebody said, fate has decided our next move. Like I could hear that in a karate movie. I could hear that in a sci-fi movie, in a fantasy movie. So that seemed real generic. Here's another one. Here's a new order. Get lost. That's not a put down. That is an animated show put down. So once again, the lightsaber stabbing got me a little low. These rather generic kind of lines got me a little low. The other thing, the third point that knocked me from 10 out of 10 to 7 out of 10 is, once again, I know the show is good. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. But as someone who doesn't know the animated show or the characters, and listeners, if you're on audio podcast right now, I'm wearing a Star Wars suit that you can buy, at a shop, and it's a coat and tails and pants in Star Wars patterns. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. I read the Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy way back in the early 90s. So I am a fan. I just never got into these animated shows. So the thing that knocked off the third point was that I have yet to kind of emotionally invest in it. Like, I see it's good. I think the characters are interesting. I'm actually down with most of it. And I do have enough kind of just knowledge through osmosis to understand what's going on. But they haven't yet made me emotionally invest in the characters or the mission. I think they can get there. And once again, this show, everything about it is really good. I'm watching it saying this is a good show, but it's like I'm watching it with my head. I want to watch it with my heart. Only 7 out of 10. Matt, take me to town. How crazy am I?
I don't think they're crazy, Bubba. I think that I've seen already today, just watching a couple of YouTube things, that people are really into the Star Warsiness of it.
Oh, yeah.
But they're also a little leery of the fact that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot to grasp onto in terms of making that investment if you're somebody who doesn't know these characters. Somebody like me or anybody else who's watched the animated series. I mean, there were moments just with Kevin Kiner's score moments where they were playing themes that we know from these shows that represent these characters, that I was just like, oh my gosh. And that almost moved me to tears. Or made me fist pump or all kinds of things. And you don't get the benefit of that. I'm already invested in it, so I can't possibly judge whether you will get invested in it or not based on what is happening so far. Hopefully you will. I hope that you do.
This is maybe a bit early. Listeners, we're going to go through the show. We're going to break it down beat by beat. We're going to play a new game, Jedi or Not a Jedi, later in the show. Double M Matt Murdock's going to give his musical analysis, his musical expert on this as a non-musical expert. I really did think this was a great score by Kevin Kiner. I could feel the emotion in it. Yeah. And then we're also going to get to your feedback. We don't have much yet, but you know what we say. Who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. You can reach out to us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. If you're one of these people who loves new apps, we're on Threads at DoublePHQ. If you're watching this on YouTube, go down in the comments. Tell us, do you watch these animated shows? Do you have that emotional connection with these characters? Or are you like me, a newbie trying to find my way through it? Now, Matt, before we get too many people
I was just going to say,
yeah,
I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about the lobes here.
Oh.
I'm talking about the fact that about, 3 weeks ago or so, I put out this podcast on all of my feeds. They weren't on the Double P feeds, but they were on my feeds, saying, I'm not going to podcast about any show until this SAG-AFTRA strike is over. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm in a creative union myself. I'm in a musicians union. I'm in the Nashville 247. And I said, no, I'm going to just not contribute to the popularity of these shows until something gets resolved. Then about a week later, you said, well, Catfish can't do these. Can you do them? You ambushed me, Bubba.
I did.
And
I did.
I want to know exactly what your stance on these strikes are and why we are still continuing to podcast about this.
So if you're listening to this anytime in the future, you may not realize that the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild of America are both on strike. If you're a member of those unions, you shouldn't be promoting struck shows, and you should be standing together with your union. Everybody knows our podcast host, Catfish. He is in Screen Actors Guild. He's been in many television shows and movies that you've watched. You know, I really shouldn't say it because it's a struck show, but if you watch TV on last Sunday and this coming Sunday night, you're going to see Catfish on a very popular show. But the Screen Actors Guild and the writers are getting hurt on residuals based on streaming channels. They're getting hurt by generative AI. If you're an actor, you used to go into an audition and they would handle kind of all this work. Now you have to put the work on yourself to create a tape of yourself auditioning. Like, there's a lot of things that are hurting working actors and writers, and we support them. You might say, well, Bubba, I've seen you talking about how you sold a script that got made into a very terrible movie that was on HBO late nights in the early 2000s. But I was never a member of the Writers Guild, but I still support them. And I would say that we are supporting them. We want this agreement to be reached and them to be compensated fairly. But the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild of America said that if you are not a member, as long as you mention the strike and as long as you continue to support the work, it's okay to keep doing fun after show podcasts like this. So that's where I stand. What do you think?
I think that that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that we're not ignoring the situation. One of the things that I told you when we talked about me coming on and doing these was that we needed to discuss this pretty much up front and maybe continually discuss this as the strike continues throughout 2023 until it resolves. But that's up to you. I just wanted it to be perfectly clear as to where we stood in terms of how we supported the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild of America. They're very important unions to me, and any creative union is important to me. And there's levels of just a lack of humanity happening in the corporate world today that just really upset me. And I know that there's going to be people out there who just love to get on the internet anonymously and will probably call me woke or whatever. And all I have to say to you for supporting because of my position is that if you think that me, a person who is merely asking for people to be treated with dignity, with humanity in all situations. I'm not just talking about this strike. I'm talking about everywhere in the world, people not being persecuted for whatever that they feel that they need to be persecuted for, or that people feel like they need to be persecuted for. If you're one of those people who calls people like me who just stand up for humanity woke, then I'm glad not to be you, because that means that you're asleep. And that's all that I'm going to say on that.
Matt, that last line was almost T-shirt worthy. So very good. Very good. Hey, hopefully you guys are okay with that. We promise Catfish will be back as soon as he can. But if you want to support those writers and Screen Actors Guild members, please do it on social media. Let everybody know about that. They're just fighting for the living wage they've had all these years. And the streaming services have kind of really hurt. Okay, enough strike talk. I do want to say that if you're listening to us and you are a murder mystery fan, you need to be subscribed to us. We are currently covering the 2 comedic murder mysteries that are on streaming services, those evil streaming services, right as we talk now. We are covering Let's Solve, Only Murders in the Building Season 3. And if you love murder mysteries with clues, Only Murders in the Building, it maybe only took them 3 seasons to get to this point, but they're finally giving up good clues that you can solve that make it so fun. And we're covering the After Party Season 2. You can find those on our Double P podcast audio feed or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C for channel/Double P Media. Also, we just talked about the strikes. Boy, this is a terrible transition. We should have ordered these differently. But let's get to news, Matt, and that is with these ongoing strikes, we know one Star Wars project that was going to air in this calendar year, 2023, has already been pushed to 2024. They're pushing projects because they want to make sure they have content for these streaming services, for their cable channels, once the strike ends and for the next year. And so Star Wars Skeleton Crew, that was going to come out in December of 2023, that's been pushed to next year. next year was already going to have this show called The Acolyte and Andor Season 2. And those shows, The Acolyte has finished filming, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So we don't know if and when we'll get The Acolyte in 2024. And Andor Season 2, which would have been coming in the fall of 2024, it didn't finish filming its second season. Got pretty close, but there's a chance we might really only have 2 shows next year, Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte, and Andor, which people love so much, may really be pushed to 2025 or as early as it can be done by the time these strikes end. What do you think about that, Matt? What do you think about Star Wars fans who are listening to this Ahsoka podcast finding out that content they may really be loving is now becoming even further away?
Yeah, I think that even if you look back at this year's recent Star Wars celebration back in May, and you think about the announcements of new movies, an Old Republic movie, a new Daisy Ridley movie, a new Rey movie, and of course, the creator of this show, Dave Filoni, is going to be putting together a movie that I think is going to be putting pretty much the whole Mandoverse into the movie. All of these now have been set back, not just by the actor strike, but of course by the writer strike as well, because some of these things haven't even been penned. So they haven't even gotten the ball rolling on some of these things that they've been promising, because the writer strike started in May, I believe. So it would have been shortly after this announcement that everything came to a grinding halt on all of that. I personally am very excited for The Acolyte. I love Daphne Keane. I loved her in His Dark Materials. Here on Double P Media's YouTube, you will find me and Holly doing podcasts about His Dark Materials. And I thought that she did a great job as the main character in that show. So I look forward to her work in the Star Wars show. But I'm really disappointed that we're not going to get anything new for quite a while now after this Ahsoka series is completed.
Let us know. Are you upset about this? Are you maybe happy that in an odd way, it might give them more time to work on these movies even longer? Write to us once again at WPHQ on all your social media platforms. Matt, we've already kind of hinted about this, and I think listeners can already tell, but this show, so many people have said, Ahsoka, it feels like Rebels season 5. I think
that's right.
So what is your relationship with the animated show Rebels?
Okay, well, not just Rebels, but all of the animated shows, including Clone Wars. Yeah. I have watched them all. I will not, as Catfish and Bubba both promised at the end of their Mandalorian coverage last spring. They said, "Don't worry, you won't get any riveting knowledge about the animated shows when we cover Ahsoka." That will remain true because I'm just a fan of the animated series. I don't build out every little bit of lore, but there are some larger picture things, especially in Rebels, that you get that sense that series, regardless of what you like or dislike about the way that the stories are presented, the overall themes are very Star Wars themes. It's a found family in a lot of ways, and you see those relationships develop. And it's, there are less mature episodes. It was designed in the mid-teen of the 2000s to accommodate to a younger audience. It was made for Disney XD is where it first premiered before there was a Disney Plus. And so it was set for that kind of show, but it still had very adult themes of found family and whatever. And the way that Ahsoka really just kind of minutely played in and out of that, I think is really well shown, demonstrated in the relationships that she has, maybe a little bit deeper relationship with Sabine now in this show. But I just like to think of Hera, Ahsoka, and Sabine all being part of a family, because that's the way I saw them in Rebels. Hera was the loving mother who always took care of the kids, Ezra and Sabine, helped guide them, gave them encouragement and what have you. Sabine was this terrible, rebellious kid who did whatever that she wanted, but usually did it really well, and so it always worked out. And then you had Ahsoka, who would come in every once in a while. She was the visiting aunt who was way too uptight and never really approved of anything completely, but would do anything to save them if need be. And I felt all of those themes basically throughout these episodes. I really loved the way that Rebels was reflected in these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. How about you,
Okay.
Bubba? I know that you don't like all of this stuff, so tell me why.
Hold on. I have tried with the animated shows, and a new Star Wars animated show, is this show called The Bad Batch. And I watched all of season 1, and I watched all of season 2. And every season, it feels like on these animated shows, especially Bad Batch season 2, there is like one single episode where it feels like a maybe more mature, somber story. And I love it. And I think, oh my God, this is incredible. And then the other episodes, I just can't engage with them. I know they're not made for me. They're made for a younger audience. And so even though I do watch all the Bad Batch, I kind of watch them with a split screen experience where I'm looking at my phone at times, yada, yada, yada. So they're not for me. I can't connect with them. I want to connect with Ahsoka so much. I think these actors are engaging, yet through 2 episodes, I'm not quite there. I'm hoping I get there in the 3rd. Now, if you have not seen, listeners, if you have not watched any of these animated shows, or if you have, we have a special segment from podcast guest Nephew Paul, who's going to break down all the characters you need to know from the animated shows in 2 minutes. So right now, let's check out Nephew Paul.
Ahsoka Tano is probably one of the most interesting protagonists in Star Wars. Starting off at a young age, she was brought into the Clone Wars and was apprenticed by Anakin Skywalker. After Order 66, she went into hiding and met the Ghost Crew from Star Wars Rebels. After the show ends, she goes out with Sabine to find the main character, Ezra Bridger. However, it takes a 3-year break, as you do. Sabine Wren was one of the first Mandalorians introduced in Star Wars. She is a part of the Ghost Crew in Star Wars Rebels, and in the show, she finds the Darksaber from the Mandalorian, gives it to Bo-Katan, and loses it to Carlos Esposito, part-time Imperior, all-time meth dealer. At the end of the show, she goes to find Ezra Bridger. Grand Admiral Thrawn is one of my favorite villains in Star Wars. His origin is that he comes from the Chiss Ascendancy in the Outer Rim. He is one of the 12 Grand Admirals positioned by Emperor Palpatine, and he's blue, like the people in Avatar. In the show Star Wars Rebels, his final mission is to stop the rebels on Lothal. However, he takes a major L on this and is thrusted away by space whales, along with Ezra Bridger. Ezra Bridger is a pretty generic protagonist, but one thing that's interesting about him is that he's an orphan like Batman, but he's not rich. Throughout the show, he works with the Ghost Crew and commits many first-degree war crimes against the lovely and super-friendly Emperor Palpatine. In the final episode, he goes missing to save the rebels and stop Grand Admiral Thrawn. Hera is the co-leader of the Ghost Crew, a group of anarchists against the lovely Empire. By the time of Ahsoka, she is a high-ranking commander in the bogus New Republic. Chopper is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. He is a droid and works with the Star Wars Rebels protagonists. He often helps with piloting missions and has a kill count of over 4,000 people, all while being a very friendly droid. How is that, Uncle John?
He did a good job explaining it.
Wow, Paul. That was amazing. You did an excellent job just giving us what we really needed to know about these characters to get us through these episodes. You're asking Uncle John how he did. I'm saying I'll speak for Uncle John, and I'll say you did fantastic.
I would never say that, but okay. I'd never say that to a nephew, but that's
you're
good,
Bubba.
Matt.
You're not Uncle John.
That's okay.
Uncle John.
Uncle John might. Right. That's a good point. Hey, if you like Nephew Paul, write us and let us know. If you don't like Nephew Paul, write me and I won't tell him. Or I will tell him if he disobeys his teachers or anything. Hey, let's dive into these episodes, Matt. And the whole series begins with not an opening crawl, but some text that once again is on the screen for somebody like me. Somebody who's like, okay, I didn't watch the animated shows. Nephew Paul kind of explained it, what's going on. And they spell it out pretty good. Did you want an opening crawl? What did you think when you saw that static text there on the screen?
I thought, what's wrong with the opening crawl?
Yeah.
Why is it red? Why isn't it going away from me? Give me the real deal or don't give me anything. But it's easy for me to say that. I didn't need it. I knew what was going on. but it did set up a couple of things for the series that were apart from the animated series. So it was very handy information to have. I just thought it was a weird variation is the way that I would put it.
This episode begins in a way that a lot of Star Wars things do. There is a bad villain, and they're going to come take over your ship. That's how A New Hope began, is some villains come take over your ship.
Mm-hmm.
Here, these people have an old Jedi clearance code, and that's very mysterious. If you're in the lore, you're like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Now, the captain, honorary Jedi, because he's not buying this, he wants to call their bluff. And when these two cloaked characters come off their shuttle, he says to him, overconfident Imperial trash. Now, sadly, he turned out to just have a guest starring role because he got
now, wait a minute. Now,
he got
wait a
a little
minute.
Sabine through the chest.
Survive. We saw Sabine survive. Maybe he's all right. Maybe he'll show up in a later episode.
Long live Captain Hale. So what did you think of this opening moment, Matt? And I don't believe these two villains who rescue Morgan Elsbeth, they aren't from the animated shows, right? They're brand new, I believe.
I believe they are brand new characters. I haven't seen them before, and I am really intrigued. I'll say with Baylan, and of course, it's such a shame about Ray Stevens. So this season is all we're going to get. Maybe that was all we were intended to get. Maybe he'll die in the end of the season. Who knows? But he really, throughout the course of both of these episodes, played a wonderfully complex person. Because I don't want to call him a Jedi. He says, "Don't call him a Jedi."
Yeah,
or
we
he
are
says,
no
"I'm no
Jedi.
We are no Jedi." But at the same time, he's not a. He doesn't seem like a Sith to me. The question I'm asking is, they aren't. I know I've heard this term being thrown out there called gray Jedi. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm not sure that I care what that means. All I know is that Baylan Skull is a very complex dude by the end of these two episodes. I really invested in him, and I think that Shin is just a badass. And right from the get-go, man, she really takes it to town. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I like them both. They don't get too much character development. They're both mysterious, but you are exactly right. Baylan he's not completely evil. There's almost regret. It's funny, you were talking about a gray Jedi. I was going to say gray Jedi, it's like bread. It's a Jedi that's gone bad.
It's a moldy Jedi.
Right. They rescued this prisoner that the New Republic wanted in those ugly uniforms that you were so upset with. Then we come down and we pretty much have a scene of Ahsoka as Indiana Jones in a temple. What'd you think about this? For everybody who maybe saw her on The Mandalorian and hasn't watched the animated show, this quickly establishes she's smart, she's resourceful, and she can fight. What'd you think about seeing your character, Ahsoka?
I absolutely love this. First of all, I'm a huge fan of anything Lucasfilm. I was a Lucasfilm kid, just as you were, Bubba. So anytime that some kind of callback to like Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever, I mean, I was just waiting for the temple to start to collapse as soon as she took the map out of the map out of the thing. I was just waiting on a boulder to come rolling from somewhere, but it didn't happen. Thank goodness they didn't go quite that tropic. But even when she's fighting the droids, there's something about both what Rosario and what Natasha are doing in terms of portraying Ahsoka and Sabine that just really intrigues me. They've really brought these animated characters to life. Just subtle things, the way that Ahsoka will blink her eyes or close her eyes when she nods to someone, or it's in the way that Natasha makes Sabine smirk that reminds me so much of these. I mean, they've really taken the care to craft who these characters are, and I love that. But the thing that got me was when she was, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead here, but when she was running away from the temple as it was blowing up, the way that her arms swung when she was running, it's just like, go watch an episode of Clone Wars. Any episode where Ahsoka's running, that's what you see. It was amazing. I loved it.
Well, once again, I could tell she kicks butt. I'm trying to get engaged with her. I want to give a shout out to these HK assassin droids. Yeah. I wish I had had this ability in my youth soccer team. It's like, we can't win. Let's begin the self-destruction action sequence. We're gonna lose. I can't hit a T-ball. Let's program this and let's go. And here we meet, or if you may be reminded, Ahsoka's got her own droid, and I'm going to mispronounce it. Is it Hu Yang?
Hu Yang, and she's more his Togruta than he is her droid, because he's been around for like 25,000 years.
Oh yeah, you get that real quickly. And is this sass or is this just a droid repeats facts? She's like, well, where were you? I was keeping the ship at a safe distance. What? I mean, come on.
I mean, come on. When you realize that HKs are now being loaded with nuclear weapons, which you want to keep a safe distance. How is he going to get her out of there if he gets shot down by an HK? Or he gets a bomb hurled at him that size.
We needed this droid to say, I was going out for pizza. Sorry, you were in trouble.
He's following Jedi protocol.
Okay, so Ahsoka has got this map. It needs a key to unlock the orb and show the map. But she's got to go see the New Republic. And if you are somebody, an OT, an original trilogy kid like I am, going to see the New Republic. It's got X-Wings. You've got those bumpy Mon Calamari ships. She goes into a briefing room, which looks like it's straight out of Return of the Jedi, and she meets her old friend, for us new to the animated shows, new character to us, General Hera Syndulla. And this is I always mispronounce if it's a Twi'lek or a Twi'lek, but she is a green character with a lot of power. What did you think of her? What did you think of this actress, Mary Elizabeth Winstead? And what did you think of this character who is from the animated shows?
Yeah, well, as I pointed out before, to me, Hera is the mother figure. As much as you like, and even her theme that Kiner penned is very similar to Princess Leia's theme, even though Princess Leia was more the defiant daughter than she was the caring mother. But as she got older in the sequel series, I suppose she took on the mother role. But Hera has always been a mother throughout the constant, and I love even the way she kids with Ahsoka about it's never straight up with you Jedi. It's always got to be a trick, right? I mean, come on, here's a map. Oh wait, we can't open it. So it's just one of those things where it's like, oh come on, give me a break. No, I loved Hera. She was fantastic. She was fantastic throughout all of these episodes. I hated seeing her as a hologram so much. That kind of
she was.
Yeah, she was never in the same place as them. It seemed like, except for I guess
at
on
the very end.
Yeah, Corellia in the second episode. Yeah.
And this really just seems like a scene to establish this is Hera. She's a friend, and the friend says, you need to go see our other friend Sabine. Sabine is, once again, why am I only 7 out of 10? This is the most generic rebel thing you've ever been. Hey, we're at this important ceremony to celebrate everybody. Wait, where are they? Where are they? Literally, they hate pageantry so much. She's running from the cops. Come on, Sabine. And she's even got her rebel rock and roll music, Matt. What in the world is going on here?
Oh my gosh, that was so good. I was so hoping when that came on, I was just like, because Mandoverse has really brought in the in-universe music a lot throughout the course of all of the series that they're doing, and I love it. But I really thought that this was Cy Snoodles singing. I just could imagine it being Cy Snoodles once again singing. But no, actually, I want to talk about this. The song is actually called, according to Decider.com, I want to credit them properly. The song is called Igyaka, which was written by Kevin Kiner and his daughter, Deanna. And also contributing was Ludwig Göransson, because Ludwig does have to get himself in some kind of Star Wars thing every time to try and ruin it. And also Göransson's assistant, Noah Gorlick, I guess is his last name.
Okay.
But they all worked together on creating this song. It was sung. I'm trying to think of it. It was the singer from like a punk rock band. Oh man, what was the name of that girl? It's Sarah somebody.
You've Googled the name of this singer real quick. I want to say, as somebody who was hearing it for the first time, and it sometimes can be jarring in Star Wars to hear those new sounds. To me, this sounded like a Hutties, like a Hut version of a
that's why I thought
Ramones
it was
cover
Psy.
band. It was
That's
a
why I was hoping
Ramones
it was
cover
Psy,
band singing in Hutties.
Turns out the singer was named, let's see here, Sarah Tudson. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there, Sarah. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. But she was the singer of a punk band, or they call it a Tinder punk band, called the Illuminati Hotties.
Okay.
I guess Google them. Don't worry, folks. If you dug the song as much as I can, I'm sure by Friday, then Disney will have put it out on Spotify.
Heck
because
yeah.
they got to make the money. So I'm sure that it will be available soon, just as many of the other in-universe songs have been made available.
Now, once again, I'm a little tough on this because it feels a bit of Rebel paint by numbers, and she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to hang with people in some fake ceremony and hear fake applause, which were probably going to be real applause. No, she wants to hang out with her Lothcat, and so I would have maybe, is she a goth? And what did you think, Matt, of this awesome Lothcat, which speaking of Disney making money off this song, do you know how many Lothcat plushies
Lots of Christmas
they
gifts
are going to sell? Yeah. Oh, my goodness gracious. Whoa.
Absolutely. Yeah. Adorable. I actually like the animated versions of them better than the live action version, the computer animated version.
This thing looks pretty good, Matt. I mean,
no, I'm not complaining about it.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I prefer it to look a little less real. I think it maybe looked a little too real and made me uncomfortable because I'm a dog person. But
all right, now let's get to what I consider possibly blasphemy. I have not really watched Rebels. I think I know the gist of it, and I think I know the characters. But from what I thought I knew of Rebels, Ezra and Sabine, they maybe flirted a little bit, but they were more like siblings, and it wasn't a romantic love. But in this scene where Sabine pulls out what I assume is an old comlink that looked like something from the Phantom Menace prop, and she's watching this character named Ezra saying, "Hey, I can't be there. Be good." To me, that almost feels like a romantic, like she's longing for this guy who disappeared.
He says in that very hologram, Bubba, that she felt like a sister to him. He says that in that hologram.
Matt, I'm talking about the vibe it gave me. I'm not making it up. Yes, he says that. I completely understand. But the way the music's playing, the way she's looking at him so longingly, it plays to me not like a sibling thing, but like a romantic thing. This is why I'm here. I'm the non-animated show watcher. So is that a disgusting idea to animated fans? Do they want these two to have any other adult type feelings for each other? What do you think?
I kind of hope that people don't ship them, but I'm sure that there are those out there who do. One of the things that was always fun about Rebels was the fact that Ezra did kind of have a crush on her at first. But it quickly dissipated because she kept basically brushing him off at every turn, and he finally got the hint. But nonetheless, I think part of that vibe that you got was actually from Kiner's score, and it used parts of Ezra's theme from the Rebels show and combined it with parts of Sabine's theme from the Rebels show, which I thought was a wonderful thing. In fact, I'm covering it in my musical analysis here shortly.
Wow, exciting. Listeners, hey, am I getting the wrong vibe? Did the show give me the wrong vibe, or am I just putting it on because I think this actress who plays Sabine is very attractive? I had to get that in honor of Catfish. Catfish is not here, so I thought, what's the most inappropriate comment that anybody could say? Yeah, the lady with the purple hair is really beautiful. There's, in honor of Catfish, I thought I'd say that. Now the bad guys have all the intel. They're frustrated because they don't have the map at this moment. But they pretty much say, "Oh, you want the map? Well, it's Ahsoka Tano's probably with her former apprentice on the planet Lothal. You're looking for Sabine Wren. Why didn't you tell her that earlier? You could have gone there right after you broke her out of prison. So instead of going to this other ruined temple that they're in." And so then another thing that really gives a bit of a prequel vibe outside of this prop, this comlink prop, I wrote in the show notes, I said, Sabine is having a crazy Anakin-like dream that he had in Attack of the Clones. She's like, Ezra's calling to me. Oh, what's going on? Maybe once again, if you're dreaming about somebody, that's not your sister.
She's actually dreaming about she's dreaming about his last hologram that he left. He left 2 holograms, and we just learned of the one that we saw in this episode. But there was another whole hologram, and some of what she was dreaming about was actually him speaking from that very hologram, which is very moving because he sacrificed himself. He called the Purrgil to take him and Thrawn away. So I think that it was more of a nightmare, not a romantic dream, than anything else.
Well, Anakin's dream in Attack of the Clones
his
is a nightmare as well.
Nightmare. Yeah.
All right, okay. So here's, once again, when I talk about a little paint by the numbers thing, here's 2 people, they're the best of friends, they're going to be the best of friends, but I guess in real life, sometimes with your best friends, you are a bit chilly. Ahsoka comes, she and Sabine are a bit chilly. There's this oddity where Sabine says, you're worried that I'm focused on a single focus, find Ezra, and not the other stuff like stopping Grand Admiral Thrawn. And this feels to me like we know they're going to reunite and be there for each other when it really counts, but let's have a little butting of heads at the beginning. And so Sabine also really, really rebelled by the numbers. Hey, can I take this map? No, you can't take this map. Let me go talk to my buddy for a bit. Wait, where'd she go? She took the map. This is the least shocking update that she ran off with the map.
Okay.
And so, what do you think?
I think that I thought that they very economically demonstrated that there was tension with them because she was, especially Sabine, was feeling like that Ahsoka never believed in her potential to be a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's still harboring a lot of that. Although the animated series will tell you that no, Ahsoka didn't really have much of a reason to actually have faith in the fact that Sabine might become a Jedi. So I thought that there was a lot of buried subtext for, again, animated watchers that maybe didn't come across to you guys. And if that's the case, then that haven't watched the animated series, maybe that's a failure of the show. So you kind of hold that against it as much as you got to prop it up. Oh, I want to go back to this one thing though.
Let's hear it.
And this was something that was very interesting to me back with Baylan and Shin and Morgan.
Right.
And she was talking about where they got that map from was from an old temple for the Night Sisters of Dathomir. That is a Clone Wars staple. One of the key inquisitors, a lot of the people came from the Night Sisters. And the fact that Morgan is, in fact, a descendant of Night Sisters, was that made clear in The Mandalorian? Because if it was, I completely missed it. So when that was put on me, when that was put on me in this episode, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. It all works. So there are lots of things that I'm getting excited about that nobody really should care about, but I do.
Well, there was the scene where the one young, not quite, the one young gray Jedi was like, "You're a witch," and Morgan was like, "I'm a survivor."
Yeah, and there's your get out of here. Yeah, here's your orders. Go away. Send that one to Lothal.
Sabine is busy proving that she would be a great person with a Rubik's Cube because she solves it so quick. She'd be great at escape rooms. She is unlocking the map. And while she's doing that, Hera is in hologram form, which you don't like so much, and she's talking to Ahsoka. So let's have a pause of all serious, not that we were very serious to begin with. Who has the best head tails, Matt? Hera Syndulla with her 2 green Leku, maybe I believe they're called, or Ahsoka? Which head tails do you like of these 2 leaders?
I like the print pattern better than the solids. I always have been. So I'm a Togruta lobes kind of person as opposed to a Twi'lek lobes kind of person.
Man, here we go. We're really getting into it. Listeners, let us know if you prefer one.
Show me them lobes
over the other. There you go. So Sabine, we love tying together all the podcasts we do here on Double PHQ. Sabine finally figures out the map orb when she draws the triquetra from the TV show Dark. And then her cat, her Lothcat, can smell evil droids. That is a pretty good thing. And oh snap, it is time. The bad guys wasted no time. It is a lightsaber battle between apprentices. And this is something that was a bit shocking to me based on what I thought I knew about Sabine from the animated show, is I didn't think she was one with the Force. I thought she was training to use a lightsaber, just kind of like any human being right now can train to use a sword. But she really held up her own against this evil gray Jedi attacking her she held up her own great until she got it right in the gut. What did you think of this fight? What did you think of Sabine? What did you think of this moment? Which I'll give it this, even though it gets reverted real quick. When she got that lightsaber through the gut, that was shocking. That was like a whoa moment.
Yeah,
What'd you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, and I got to put myself in the moment, the first moments of the second episode. Actually, if I'm Ahsoka, I'm putting Sabine in a headlock and I'm rubbing her head and telling her over and over and over again. I'm hazing her and I'm telling her. So if you wouldn't have taken the map, none of this would have happened.
Yep.
If you wouldn't have taken the map, none of this would have happened. And so that's one thing. On the other hand, Sabine can say, well, if you'd have just trusted me, maybe I would have stayed, but you didn't show any trust in me at all.
Okay.
So I think that the fact that we do get a comment from Hu Yang a little later about how he's seen all kinds of Force students with all kinds of aptitudes, and Sabine doesn't measure up at all. It's kind of like she pulls a Tyrion in terms of Force ability.
That's pretty bad when he's like, I've been around 2,000 years. I've seen so many people with Force abilities.
25,000 years of students.
I'm saying you're the worst.
Yeah, he's saying she's the worst. He absolutely is. And so you're right. It seemed a little bit strange that she could keep up for that long.
Yeah, she really did.
I prefer to think of it as Shin was just toying with her, just testing her.
I wish that had come across more. To me, it looked like Shin was really trying, and
Shin looked like she's really trying when she's cutting a unarmed man in half.
That's a good point. She's got that right. She's like,
so she just got, that's just her look, man. That's her. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. That's her. That's that look.
Okay, so great cliffhanger, I thought, even though they've released these first two together. So there's no way you're not going to hit next. And we go on to the next episode, Toil and Trouble.
Wait a minute, though.
Oh, wait a minute.
I didn't hit next immediately.
Oh, really? Oh, because of the score, I bet.
The end credit sequence.
Yep.
Did you watch that map unfolding there?
I did. I thought it was pretty good.
All of those little symbols. There was a Purgil symbol in there. All of that stuff was fantastic. The score was amazing. It combined Hera's theme. It combined Sabine's theme. It combined Ahsoka's theme all together into one thing. It had this marching drive to it that really tells you musically what the mission of this story is for the season. I thought that it was fantastic. And I even stayed past the animation stuff to the regular credits. That's where you get Hera's theme, folks. If you didn't click on it, when the screen goes real small, no. Click on it. Let it come back open and listen to all of that glorious music that comes after it. It was fantastic. Okay, well, now we can talk about.
Well, I just want to follow up on you. That animated ending, the one thing that I love about it is how, like, all the lines on this map, in the end, they're all going and pointing to one place. And I think that's probably true of what the series is going to be. We've got a lot of people. We're trying to find Thrawn, and we're trying to find this guy Ezra, and all the lines are going to come together. Really excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a nice thematic concept as well. It's just really cool stuff. Yeah. I mean, even the font. I love that font. Yeah. That was fantastic.
Now, let's just go through the bad guys generally on this second episode, because it feels like we got more bad guys than I thought. So we have Baylan and Shin, these what we're until we know any better calling gray Jedis. Everybody in the future is going to know what they're really referred to, but we'll call them. We have Morgan the Witch. We have these droids, but then we have another a kind of hooded, masked person who's not a droid called Mordok, and they are all getting together And as Morgan unlocks this map, and she's saying, we're trying to find the pathway to Paradia, I believe it, almost like the pathway to paradise, but it's Paradia. And I believe it's Balin who said, oh, what are you talking about? That's like a fairy tale that's based on the truth. Yeah, but it's a fairy tale.
That would be a triple P, a Paragil Paradian pathway.
Exactly right. Heck yeah, triple P. And so they need this hyperdrive, the Eye of Sion, I believe it's called, that they're going to complete to be able to go this crazy distance, which is, I believe, in another galaxy, and find this. And Balin, it's real interesting at the end of the episode. Once again, we're kind of talking about the bad guys all at once. You're right. He is not a full Sith. He's not 100% evil, because it's almost like when he's told, well, we're going to have to kill this Ahsoka. She's causing too much trouble. It's almost like he's saying, yeah, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. Is that the vibe you got from Balin? What do you think?
I think that he is doing what he needs to survive as a Jedi, and he would just assume all the remaining Jedi survive. But he realizes that in order for him to survive, he's probably going to have to take her out. And I think that he does find some sadness in that. That's what I think makes Balin, and probably Shin, because of her obvious distrust of Morgan being a witch of Dathomir. It seems that I think that they're both kind of very much in the middle. Now, this Marrok fella, he has one of those lightsabers that we associate with the Inquisitors. We saw those in the Obi-Wan series, of course.
That's right.
And the spinning lightsabers and whatever. And they've been very prevalent throughout all of the animated series as well. So I don't know if Marrok is a Inquisitor on the run who never got caught by the Rebel Alliance, or if he's just I don't understand what his role is exactly, but he is kind of just additional muscle for Morgan, I guess, or for Balin. I don't know who he works for.
Yeah, we're going to have to find out. Marrok, he is obviously masked for a reason. And is he an alien? Is he somebody we know? There's some online theories already guessing that maybe he's an important character that we're all looking for. So no thoughts there. Let's just move on. That
it's Ezra.
Like
that's
what people
Ezra,
are wondering.
Right?
That's what people are wondering.
Are you kidding me? Oh, come on, people! You can do better than that. It's Obi-Wan.
I think that's a pretty good.
Force Ghost Obi-Wan.
That'd be great. That'd be great if that was true. Now, speaking of Marrok, mainly because he's involved in these action scenes, we open up season 2 with a pretty good action scene. Ahsoka goes back to Sabine's place, and there's a droid hidden in the ceiling. Love it. And she takes care of it real quick, and that's how our team is going to be able to find their way to Toil.
The thing about Ahsoka fight scenes is they kind of border right on Looney Tunes. you think about that opening sequence at the temple, and the way she's underneath them and cutting holes and they're falling down. That seemed very Looney Tunesy to me. And this one is just like a single strike or two, and this guy's over. It's like, what's the point of even trying to take out Ahsoka? She's just too badass.
She is pretty much badass. Somebody who shouldn't be getting out of bed and healthy so quick is Sabine, who I realized I messed up. I got to train again. I got to get back in my apprentice ways. She goes back to her place, puts on her old Mandalorian armor. It's time to suit up, kick ass, and give yourself a haircut. So are you excited? I'm pretty sure she suits up in her animated costume, for lack of a better word, meaning the armor she wore on the show. Mm-hmm. Was it thrilling to see her back with her short hair, like I believe she had on her show, and in this armor? What'd you think?
I don't want to skip over the part where she tries to blow up a whole hospital just to get the location of a Corellian droid.
I do.
Okay.
Come on, Rebel. Why must you be so much of a rebel?
Okay. Well, if you want to skip over it, I do. But I love the Corellia stuff. I love Seed Chopper and all of that. So I thought that we were going to go there. As far as Sabine, the beginning sequence, this is neat, the way that Filoni kind of mirrored this. Mm-hmm. There is a sequence at the end of the very last episode of Rebels. They call it the epilogue.
Okay.
And you see a scene of Ahsoka's ship and 2 X-Wings flying over the tower, and Sabine is standing there and seeing them fly over. So that happened in the first episode. Huh. And then her getting her armor and everything, that was cool. The haircutting was a big tribute to another character from Rebels who ended up dying in the series, Kanan
wow.
Jarrus. He was a hidden Jedi. He was the one who trained Ezra, and he was also the father of Hera's child, who we haven't met yet. So he had to save Hera, and at one point he cut his hair off to go to war to save Hera. So I love that tribute of Sabine cutting her hair like that in relation to Kanan Jarrus. I thought that was fantastic. I got giddy and giggly over the armor, and I thought, thank God she took that helmet out of the bag. So yeah, I love that scene.
Okay, well, let's get to Corellia, which really is a standout moment. They're going there because this droid was from there. We find out that during the Empire days, Morgan kind of controlled this area of Corellia. There's a lot of passive-aggressive talk of Ahsoka when Hera's like, well, what about Sabine? What about Sabine? And Ahsoka is very passive-aggressive, like, oh, yeah, I guess I could train her if she was worth it. I mean, this is go to therapy. And something evil's going to happen. This isn't going to go well. But they're in the control room, and oh, snap, some characters pull out pistols and start firing and saying, for the Empire. And I thought, this is Disney making a show where you can't trust, day workers, only management. This is terrible.
Well, the management got arrested too.
Yeah, I know the middle management, not the CEO. That's exactly right. But somebody saying for the Empire, that to me was an oh snap moment. I loved it. I loved this fight. I loved Ahsoka smashing the windows with her saber and dropping down and getting busy in this fight. We've mentioned Chopper. If you're new like me and you're like, wait, who's Chopper? Chopper is the droid in the ship that Hera was flying that put the tracking. Yeah. The tracking beacon on the ship that was trying to get away. I loved all this stuff. And the one thing I do know is that I loved Chopper. From what little I know of the animated show, Chopper is the best. And Hera's having a discussion with him in the middle of this great action scene about, no, dude, I didn't move your stuff. This is good. This is, once again, I know people may be tough on my score of only 7 out of 10, but this was really fun. I liked it a whole lot.
Let me ask you this, Bubba. Did you know that the person who voices Chopper, there's actually a voice buried in there. You can probably hear it sometimes saying some things. That's Dave Filoni. He always has been. Since the animated series, he's always done it. And I love that. That ship that Hera is flying is called the Phantom, which is part of a larger ship called the Ghost. All of the crew on the Rebels were called the Ghost Crew, basically. Because they were part of that ship, and they would all go by these nicknames like Spectre and whatever. I love that Ahsoka's ship is called Fulcrum. That was her code name during the rebellion, and was also used as an identity for lots of different agents, so that who the true Fulcrum was could never be identified. All of this stuff, all of this lore that really fills up the legends, that when you get these little Easter eggs like this, just expand the universe exponentially. All of it comes from Clone Wars and Rebels. And I love when my world gets so much more huge, just seeing Chopper bang on a ship because he's mad that he can't find something, or he's mad that Hera isn't piloting well enough and he might get hit. Their relationship is beautiful. I love their relationship. They've known each other since he was on a Y-wing that crashed on her planet, and she resuscitated him. He was CP-110, I believe, was what his original call numbers were, or C-110P. I can't remember which, but she ended up naming him Chopper. And ever since then, he's been a war criminal. This droid has killed more human beings. That's what Nephew Paul said. This droid has killed more human beings than I think Darth Vader did. Or Admiral Tarkin combined.
Nephew Paul and I were having this talk. Who has the most kills in all of Star Wars known history, Matt? Do you know? They give it to General Hux in the sequel trilogy for Starkiller Base, as well as some of the deaths that he did at the beginning of The Last Jedi. So he apparently has the most kills, old Hux does. Now, any thoughts about Ahsoka's awesome lightsaber battle, which to me, I guess you can't have a decisive battle too early in the show. What did you think of her battle against these droids and Marrok, who, like you said, is rocking a double-sided lightsaber that is very inquisitive looking to it, and he almost treated it like a boomerang. What do you think of this fight? What do you think of this action?
Well, I was going to say, all of the things with Ahsoka, they're not much of a challenge to Ahsoka. They go by pretty quick. The fact that she actually had to work for a minute or two with Marrok or however his name is pronounced, is a tribute to his talent. And I thought that the coolest moment was actually when it was over, because he did throw that lightsaber at her, and she never broke sight of him and just moved out of the way as it went past her on the way back to him. I thought that was so cool, the way she continued to stare at Marrok and Shin, and just kind of moved her shoulder a little bit, and the lightsaber went right past her rather than hitting her. That is the Ahsoka that
I wanted her to take it down. I wanted her to calmly hold up her own saber at the last minute and slice that one in half.
Just like, I don't even need to see this. I'm just going to get out of its way and keep staring at you and remember your face, remember your rusty armor, remember your ship. I'm going to take everything else in so that I can find you and take you out.
Oh, yeah. The gang is back together. That's 2 episodes. We're already, oh boy, I can't do math. We're 25% of the way through. We are 25% of the way through the series. Thoughts, Matt, after these 2? You've already given it 9 out of 10, but how about this ending where it's like, okay, the villains have their hyperdrive. We know that's bad news because that means they can get to where they're going to, but we have a tracker on that hyperdrive. We can follow them and we can stop them. Thoughts?
So that big O-ring isn't the ship itself. It's just like a hyperdrive ring, like what Obi-Wan used in Clone Wars when he went to Geonosis.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, so but they've needed 9. Well, okay, this is where my Star Wars and my Star Trek conflict with each other, because there are certain barriers in hyperspace or warp travel in Star Trek that I guess don't exist. If you want to go faster, if you need to go not just between planetary systems, but you need to go between galaxies, just build bigger and more quantity of hyperdrive engines and put them on an O-ring, and you're good. A hyperdrive ring.
You're going the generic light speed hyper
right.
Speed, boring.
9 times light speed. We need 9 light engines.
Move to the right lane, slowpoke.
Now, one thing that I do love, and I hope that this isn't a spoiler, but just as far as the trailer stuff goes, we've seen Thrawn in trailers on the same bridge.
Oh, but
he was on the same bridge of that ship that we saw Morgan on. The Eye of Sion or whatever it is. So we know that ship gets to him somehow because it's the exact same bridge. So I'm assuming that means that they're going to be successful somewhere down the line.
There's no way they're like, oh, I've also built my own Eye of Sion.
What do you know?
Awkward.
We have the exact same interior decorator. My bridge looks exactly like your bridge.
Hey, listeners, what do you think? Are these 2 episodes got you hyped for what's coming next? At DoublePHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. Email us, hello@doublepmedia.com. We want to hear from you. Are you like Matt and you know all these things? Are you like me where, I think that sounds familiar? Let us know. And hey, we want you to play this game with us, Jedi or Not a Jedi. This game is inspired by our titular character, Ahsoka, who uses the Force. She fights with lightsabers. She trained as a Jedi, but she left the Jedi Order. So is she technically not a Jedi? Or maybe she is. In this game, we list the character or things or action scenes, whatever, from the show, and we debate and decide, is it a Jedi or is it not a Jedi? Let's start off with Hera. This is
The war criminal.
Wait, Hera's a war criminal. What?
She
Is this
used
an animated thing? What'd she do with this?
She used the blade to cut a whole Imperial Star Destroyer in half to break the Lothal blockade. So I'd say she's a war criminal.
Well, boy, you are pulling up knowledge that I don't know from the anime show. Okay, but does that mean if you're a war criminal, she's not a Jedi?
Not presently.
Okay, all right, I agree. She's a lot of things, but she was like one of the few characters who wasn't wielding a lightsaber. So I am saying, Hera Syndulla, you're possibly great, possibly a war criminal, but whatever you are not a Jedi. Let's go to a character that we all know that probably everybody's going to fall in love with if they haven't already. Chopper the droid. Chopper the droid.
A war criminal.
But now, once again, in the animated show, you and Nephew Paul were talking about this droid has killed a lot of people.
Killed more humans than any other faction, any combination. No battle has suffered more losses. Thousands upon thousands of human beings have died at the hands of Chopper. Not a Jedi. Although he does have some Jedi moves.
All right. Well, I guess you've convinced me against again, I don't know the animated show of this droid killing everybody. I'm going to say not a Jedi, but possibly a Sith if it's killed this many people. Okay, how about Baylan Skull? We have Baylan Skull. He was only introduced in this. You can't use animated show knowledge to determine, is Baylan a Jedi or not a Jedi?
No, but I can ask the question quite strongly. War criminal?
Based on what? Okay, hold on.
Here's the other thing. It's like all that damage he does inside that rebel ship. Why is it that when Ahsoka and Hu Yang come to the ship, they see all the damage on the outside? What's with all the damn pot marks on the outside of that ship? Was he shipping his lightsaber all the way up through the ceiling of that thing? Or did they just hang around after they got away and just said, yeah, let's just shoot at it for a while. It's fun. If that's the case, he is not a Jedi. He's a war criminal.
Okay. My favorite character somehow survived, even though he got a lightsaber through the gut. That's Captain Hale from the opening scene. So the only way that Captain Hale could be defeated is by a Jedi. Therefore, Baylan Skull is a Jedi. Long live Captain Hale.
You are an overcompetent Imperial scum, Bubba. You cannot say those kinds of things about how Baylan is not a Jedi. Oh, is a Jedi. He just told you he's not a Jedi.
You know what? People don't like to admit what they are, so I'm going to let Baylan have that one. How about this droid who's been around? You say 25,000 years. What's his name again? Is he
Hu Yang?
Hu Yang.
Yeah, he's
Jedi?
a pacifist and
Not a Jedi.
He's a pacifist.
Okay.
And a coward, but he knows how to build lightsabers. So while he's not a Jedi, he is a Jedi maker.
Okay. All right. Well, because you said he's a bit of a coward, that reminds me of who? Yoda, who after he lost one fight to Darth Sidious, he went and hung out on Dagobah for 2 decades. Also a coward. So therefore, Hu Yang is a Jedi. Hu Yang's a Jedi. There we go.
You're choking yourself up, Bubba. Just remember. Oh wait, I mean no harm. I mean no harm. Right? That's Yoda.
All right. Now the last one, and listeners, you can vote on any of these people. Possibly the only person who can give Captain Hale a run for their money in my love in these first 2 episodes is Min Weaver. Is Min Weaver a Jedi or not a Jedi? Now, for everybody listening, including Matt, is like, who the hell is Min Weaver?
The corporate guy.
He is the middle management guy there at the Corellia shipyard who claims, what are you talking about? This is all up and up. Min Weaver, not a Jedi or a Jedi? Which is he, Matt? Let's hear it.
Well, I get my series mixed up, and I often think about how in The Wheel of Time, Aes Sedai cannot lie. I don't know if that's truly the case with Jedi, though. At any rate, no matter how hard he tried to lie, it obviously didn't work. So he cannot be a Jedi.
Completely wrong. Min Weaver is the most powerful Jedi. He did a Jedi mind trick and said, no, we have nothing to do. He was like, they're like, we're looking for stuff that Morgan Elsbeth had here at Corellia. And he used the Jedi mind trick. He was like, Morgan Elsbeth is not here in Corellia. She has nothing. And they fell for it until two lackeys screamed out for the Empire and ruined his move. So therefore, Min Weaver, always the best Jedi there is. The Jedi weaves what the weaves want. There you go. Let's go, Min Weaver. Hell yeah.
I got nothing.
Okay, now, Matt, why don't you introduce your musical analysis segment we're going to hear right now?
It's the Triple M Double F.
Triple M Double F.
Yeah, that's my musical analysis featuring feedback.
Oh, wow.
In case Bubba has questions. Oh my gosh, so much great music from Kevin Kiner in these two episodes. The score was pretty much constant, and it never really totally went away, or at least it felt that way to me. And sometimes that can be annoying, but here it really worked, and it was done subtly enough most of the time to where it didn't get in the way of things, and it really did work for me in this particular episode. We did have all three of those themes that I talked about in the preview podcast. Go back in the feed and find it, because I'm not going to break those themes down anymore. I've already done that extensively in the prior podcasts that I did, so please go check that out. But I did want to comment on how all three of those themes were used so well in the in-credit sequence. What a spectacular sequence, by the way. Wasn't that great? But there were a lot of combinations of those themes along with other music that I found really intriguing in this episode, and I kind of want to highlight those. The main things that I'm going to highlight is the music in pretty much the opening sequence, which I believe is going to represent Balon's theme or Balon and his apprentice's theme for the rest of the series, because it was really interesting. And I also want to talk about the fact that we heard Ezra's theme from Rebels as well when Sabine was seeing Ezra's hologram. I thought that was a wonderful interplay between the two themes. So that's a heck of a lot to talk about, plus the way that those are all integrated into the end credit sequence. We better get started, because I've already gushed way too much without really saying anything, right? So let's start with this theme that we had at the beginning when Balon and, forgive me, I can't remember the apprentice's name right now, but when they were attacking the ship to free Morgan, especially when the action was focused on Balon, we heard this a lot. As you know, I like to talk about things in terms of basically four contexts, like the instruments that are used, how the rhythm is used, how the harmony is used, and the melodic shape. The big thing for me here is the timbres, meaning the instruments that are used, because you don't get a whole lot of piano except used as kind of almost like a percussive instrument in most Star Wars music. But here, it actually carried the main chords and the main melody. A synth bass kind of duplicated that melody way down low, and the piano was positioned way up high, like you just heard there. And I thought that that was so interesting, and a little bit of orchestral chords in between, lots of sound effects. I loved how the piano really cut through some of those sound effects. You could still hear that theme. It was an excellent choice for the timbres. More importantly, harmonically, of course, it's minor. When we have minor chords, they're usually scarier or sadder than major chords, which are typically happier or at least more at ease or more hopeful. But the interesting thing here is the fact that all of the chords are minor. And there's one set, that middle set, that should not be minor if it's all played in the same key. So it almost feels like it changes keys. It goes from an A minor, and then it goes down to an F minor. And an F minor has notes in its key that don't fit with the A minor. And that's why that change in the middle there is so weird. And then it just goes down a half step to resolve to what we would call the 5 chord, meaning that it is trying to get us back to where we started. That's the function of the dominant 5 chord, except that chord was minor also, which does exist in that particular key, but it's usually replaced by its major so that it creates a dominant 7, which makes you want to get back to that 1 faster. However, he delayed that just a little bit. He did play the minor chord first and then went to the dominant 7th chord. So he's like saying, okay, now we're ready to reset. But it just creates that extra little moment of tension that is wonderful. I typically do not like the piano in television scores. You can ask any of my friends. You can ask any of my fellow podcasters. I complained when it happened in Game of Thrones. I complained when it happened actually in The Force Awakens for Rey's theme. I was not happy about that. But I've grown to accept it, I guess. And I really like the way that it cut through all of those big sound effects. So it still made the score function and represent Balon or Balon's mission very well throughout the context of all of that chaos. That's one subject. Moving on to the next subject, we have this wonderful interplay as Sabine is watching Ezra's hologram message that goes between her theme and Ezra's theme, which I did not expect to hear in this particular episode or even really in this particular series, because I didn't know how much Ezra was going to come into play other than just being a motivation, especially for Sabine or for Ahsoka herself. Here, the fact that he's brought it in there is at very least a wonderful Easter egg. But the way that it interplayed with Sabine's theme was even more wonderful. First, let me play for you just the melody of Ezra's theme. And because I realize that you probably didn't pause this particular podcast just so you could go back and listen to my whole 30-minute podcast on previewing the Ahsoka music. So here's what Sabine's theme sounds like. The harmony and the way the themes work together, you actually feel the sadness that Sabine feels for, I don't know, missing Ezra. He's like a little brother to her, or regret about what's happened between her and Ahsoka. There's so many things at play here, and the way these two melodies work together, because Ezra's melody sounds like it's going to be minor the whole time, but then it ends major. That actually gives that little lift of hope, because Ezra's life, if you've not seen Rebels, was very sad. But at the same time, he always found hope. And that was what the beautiful thing that Kevin Kiner did to represent him, was change it from the minor sad to the ending where there's always hope at the end. Loved that. But here he also puts Sabine's theme harmonically in a context of sadness, because Sabine's theme can also feel like it's very happy or even triumphant. But of course, that's not the harmonic context that we got this time around. So we had to have it in the sad context where the melody helps it sound like it's part of a more minor, a more sad, a more regretful sound. Way that those two interact with each other is just so beautiful. I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm coming up on like 9 minutes of talking already. I've got to wrap this thing up, but I do want to talk about these end credits, because once again, we have all three of the main themes that I previewed working together under kind of one underlying motif, meaning a rhythmic element or a melodic element that ties everything together, like this. Being played underneath the Sabine theme. And then he keeps the timbres going. The same instruments are playing underneath, but he changes the instrument of the melody for Ahsoka, and that's when things get a little bit harmonically different. But again, it all ties together wonderfully because of the timbres, the instruments being played. And finally, and I haven't talked about Hera enough because I adore Hera. She should be everyone in the universe's mother. But if you don't stick around and keep watching the credits, because I know they always want you to just, it gets small and you have to click on it again to stay on it. But do it, because you hear Hera's theme as well during the credits. All three of those main Rebels themes that we talked about in the preview podcast are there. That sounds like this. And of course, that melody we heard when Hera first greeted Ahsoka when she came aboard. We also heard it several times throughout the episodes, like when she was talking to Sabine, trying to pump her up when she was in the hospital. Love, love, love Hera. Oh my gosh, I've talked way too much. Let's get back to the next segment. Okay, Bubba, so you got any questions for me or what?
Well, my main question is kind of bigger overall than maybe you touched on in the analysis, in that John Williams is such a...
Wait, you didn't listen to that? We just played that for these people, and you didn't listen to the musical analysis.
I am working on so many podcasts right now. Was you playing
solitaire? What were you doing?
I was playing solitaire, yes. I'm doing so many podcasts right now. I haven't listened to it. I apologize. But I do have a question unrelated to that specific analysis. John Williams is such a overriding figure in Star Wars and in cinema history. But one thing that I hear from everybody is they love this music and this composer. What do you think he does? Does he do anything, in your opinion, better than John Williams? And if not, what does he do that maybe is as good as John Williams?
All right. Well, I would love to answer that question. But first, I want to say, Catfish listens to my musical analysis segments.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do anything. He's the worst.
Now, to answer your question, Bubba, I think that everybody, especially musicians and most fans alike, I think agree that if John Williams is the master, then Kevin Kiner is definitely the apprentice, soon to become master. I think you go back to that New Hope quote where Darth Vader, and not to compare Kiner to Darth Vader, but Darth Vader says, I was once the learner, and now I am the master. I think that that's what we've seen, is that Kiner has become the master. There are things that he does that I appreciate that aren't necessarily better than what Williams does, but just from the way that I like composing to go, as I've talked about many times on this podcast before, I think about melodic shape, I think about rhythm, I think about harmony, and I think about timbre. And there was a perfect example in this very episode where you don't hear piano a whole lot in Star Wars music, and you wouldn't think it very characteristic of it. But I believe that it was chosen simply because it would make the score function alongside all of the sound effects going along with it. And that was when Baylan first came on the ship and was attacking other people, when it went to him alone, while Shin was, being a war criminal and killing all of the rest of the crew. The Baylan stuff, it was a piano was making the theme happen. A theme that you heard when they first exited the shuttle was repeated just in the piano. Any other instrument would not have cut through all of that. It just wouldn't have cut through, but the piano worked. And that's the thing that I think where with Williams and Ben Burtt, sometimes there may have been a little bit of a conflict, one overriding the other sometimes. Whereas here, I felt like there was, I'm sorry, Skywalker Sound. I don't know who's doing this stuff. I didn't check the credits. I apologize, because you guys are just as brilliant as any of the scoring. The music and the sound effects are both the heartbeat, people don't understand how much audio really plays and tells a story. But I think that Kiner is in some ways better at learning how to marry the music to that kind of stuff, because he came from all of that animation stuff where it's just dialogue, just sound effects, and you don't have any visuals yet to score to. You're having to find the pockets in between the conversation, in between the effects. And so that's what really made that score. The score was constant this time around, Bubba. It almost never stopped throughout both episodes. And yet
You are right.
It was done subtly enough that it didn't matter. Normally that would drive me crazy. I mean, normally I would go nuts if the music didn't stop at some point. I've always followed the policy that it is just as important to know when to stop playing music as it is to know when to start playing music. And Ramin is excellent at stopping. John Williams is excellent at stopping. But here, somehow, Kevin did it without needing to stop. He knows how to play to the overall volume of the scene incredibly.
Matt, somebody is listed in the credits in the music department as the score mixer. Would that be the person who does it? It's somebody named Scott Michael Smith, or would it be a different position?
Well, he would definitely relate the volume in terms of to itself, all of the instruments within themselves. I think the final mix probably still happens at Skywalker Sound, right?
Okay.
Was there something for final mix? Because that's who gets the credit for doing it. But it's just the fact that Kiner took the time to know what was going to be in that scene and understand what instrument would cut through and not be overbearing at the same time for all of that cacophony that was going on while Balin was destroying people.
There is somebody by the name of David Accord who's the sound designer. Would that be it?
He would definitely have a lot more influence over the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will know by the time, guys, next week comes along. We are going to end this podcast the way we're going to end every Parsec Passion podcast. And that's by talking about your feedback, because it's the first of the season, and because we're just getting it back up. We haven't gotten too much feedback. We've got it from two wonderful double L's.
Double L's? Wasn't that your rating?
That's right. Lightsaber and ladies. Here they are. It's Camille at Harley Camille on the app formerly known as Twitter. Camille wrote, I watched the first episode of Ahsoka, and I started it too late, so she didn't get to watch the second one yet when she said that. But after just that first episode, she wrote, I already love it because I love the Rebels characters. And she said that first episode, cliffhanger, exclamation point. Well, Camille, obviously you're not going to listen to this until you've heard and watched the second episode, but I hope you love it as well. That is the kind of passion we love on the Parsec Passion podcast.
And hey, I know this person. The other lightsaber wielder is Holly. Our friend Double H, Holly Hunt Pants, who's at Hunt Pants on Twitter, says Ahsoka. Oh, this is where you had a tweet where you were asking whether we were going to choose to watch Ahsoka or After Party, correct? Because those are both shows that Double B Media is currently covering. Oh, yeah. And Holly chose Ahsoka because After Party is my after work after party.
Oh, how fun. Ahsoka, it is a buzz right now. There are obviously multiple shows on the air. We're currently covering Only Murders in the Building and the After Party. But the buzz for Ahsoka has been huge. Listeners, if you have a thought, what do we want you to do? We want you to reach out and talk to us. You're the third member of this podcast team at Double PHQ, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ, and on YouTube. Leave those comments. Matt, what do we need to be looking forward to, or anything you're excited to see in episode 3?
Well, I'm really interested to see, hopefully, or at least maybe find out a little bit more about this other galaxy further and further away than the galaxy far, far away that we already know. I'm also really, we know that tracker got on there. I love that Shin said, no, she couldn't have tracked our ship. I was waiting on her to deliver the Han Solo line, especially since now that we know that Morgan is a night sister, right. Not this ship's sister. I was waiting on that line, but it didn't happen. But maybe we'll get that line next week. Probably not. But I'm looking forward to. There's got to be some face-offs in these next season or in this next episode, because you know that Ahsoka and Sabine are going to get there, and we know we've seen stuff in trailers of them all fighting, and I believe we saw a shot of Ahsoka and Balin fighting at that very map place.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I'm expecting that that's what's going to happen in this next episode, just based on spoilery trailers, right?
Heck yeah. All right, hey. My name's Bubba. You can find me on all social media platforms by my handle, Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And I'm Walleye. No, I'm Double M. And you can find me at Musical Concepts on Twitter. Oh, X. Whatever Elon Musk is trying to call it this week.
And you'll hear us next time on Parsec Passion.
The client is so good.
That was, yeah, you were so good at that, you made mine sound like Sice Noodles.